Welcome back. So, the topic this time is should you use said as a dialogue tag? I'm fully aware that this is a controversial topic and that not everyone will agree with what I have to say. And in fact, I'm not sure that most of my English teachers will agree with me. I think most of them will disagree. So, before we start, to make my stance clear, I generally prefer a mixture of no dialogue tags and said. I'll explain why with an example. So I'm using the same dialogue here over and over again, written in four different ways. The first, dialogue tags are used every time, but if said can be avoided without making it sound too pretentious, it will be avoided. So you can see the paragraph on the screen right now. I'll admit it, this is not the best representation of this kind of writing, but that's probably because I don't use it in general. My problem with it is that it leaves pretty much nothing to the reader's imagination. It treats the reader like an idiot. It forces the writer's image of the conversation onto the reader. And besides, it adds emphasis everywhere, dulling the effect for when you really need to hammer the point home. So I'm not saying you have to stick to said, but you have to use those other dialogue tags sparingly. So let's look at the second example on the screen right now. So here too, the speaker is indicated every time, and said is used except when it's necessary to use a different dialogue tag. So as far as I'm concerned, this is actually better than the previous one. True, it doesn't demonstrate your superior vocabulary, but the dialogue tag is mostly invisible if you're reading it at any level of speed. Besides, the reader can figure out some of the nuance themselves based on how the conversation is going, how everyone is acting, and so on. There is room for improvement though. It's not necessary to indicate the speaker every time, as the reader can figure it out based on context. And besides, even an invisible word like said can start to stand out if it's overused. So the third method is to avoid dialogue tags when possible, but use said when you need a dialogue tag. That is when you need to indicate the speaker, when the situation is ambiguous, and so on. So here you may have noticed I'm using the rhythm of the speech and the action to indicate the speaker. So full disclosure, this is my preferred method. The reader has quite a lot they can fill in, but the gaps in information aren't so large that they can't be bridged, or at least you don't have to go back an entire page to figure out what's going on. When you need a dialogue tag, you can just use something fairly innocuous like said or asked, or you can use a different dialogue tag for emphasis. For example, when there's a clear back and forth between two people and it's clear that it's the case, you can avoid dialogue tags for, say, a few lines. But please, for the sake of whatever you believe in, do not have a back and forth conversation of 3 pages with no reminder of who's saying what. Speaking of that, here is method number 4. So this avoids dialogue tags altogether, instead using action and rhythm of the conversation to indicate who's speaking. So this one works too, but it may require a little bit of work on the reader's part in order to make sense of what's going on. It may work. It's definitely fine for about a 100-word conversation like we have here. But a 100,000-page book written this way can get a little exhausting after a while. So that was my 2 cents on the topic. Let me know what you think of it in the comments. See you next time.